Hello, everyone. I'm Darien Gold, and welcome to All Things Pilates, Season 7. In this season, you'll hear inspiring stories about the healing power of Pilates and from teachers around the world who will share how they're helping to make Joseph Pilates' wish come true by bringing more attention to the gift he left us. Contrology, transforming bodies one studio and one country at a time. The power of the hands cannot be underestimated. There could be an entire certification program just on how to use the hands. In fact, when I was a gymnast, we were expected to know how to spot fellow gymnasts, whether assisting a back walkover on the balance beam or handstand variations on the uneven parallel bars. We basically just had to figure it out. But as a Pilates teacher, how do you know where to place your hands on your client and how much pressure you should use and when to know when it's time to back off? These types of questions will be explored with my guest, Roberta Kirschenbaum. You might remember Roberta in Season 4, Episode 54, where she talked about her mentors, especially with her most endearing first-generation teacher, Carola Trier. Roberta.
Hi, Darien.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being on the show again.
Yeah, I feel so honored. I'm getting a double play.
Yeah.
This is the second podcast with you.
Yes.
Let me say also that you've been doing great work interviewing all these people from a variety of backgrounds, and it's really appreciated.
Thank you. I don't hear that enough, so I really appreciate it. And there are so many interesting stories and people telling their stories. I think Joe Pilates would be pretty wowed that so many types of teachers and students are not just loving his method, but they're intrigued by what is possible for themselves and how their bodies are changing and their lives changing, actually.
Absolutely.
Well, Carola, she was basically your favorite teacher, maybe. I know you had others, Kathy, right? But she touched your heart the most.
She was the first. It's like your first love. And it's like your first love. It's like your first influence. And that was my stepping ground to going to every place else with Carola's encouragement. She sent me, Carola would close every summer. And the first summer I was there, Carola encouraged me to go to Kathy and Romana because she knew that I was passionate about this work.
So when Carola took the summer off, Romana and Kathy were both working. They were still in the city teaching.
Yes, Carola took off like right after July 4th, and she opened up right after Labor Day
Oh,
weekend.
that was every year.
Every year. Every year. I mean, when she reached a certain age, she was well in her 70s when I met her. So I don't know how many years she had when she started to do that. But my time with her from the beginning took off every summer.
Do you have any stories that you can share with our listeners about Carola for us to get a sense of her personality?
Carola, lots of things to say about Carola. You know, in a positive light. I mean, I adored Carola. The funny thing was I had only been a student with Carola's. I started in April of 1984 because I had just gotten my tax return money back. And so I had the money to afford her. Although I forget what it was at that time. It was something ridiculous.
$12 or something.
$14, $10. I forget that one. But I had only been working with her for 2 months. And then being that she was going to be closing on July 4th weekend, that was when Deborah Lesson was her last year working with her. So because it was Deborah Lesson's last season with her, I asked Carola if in the fall when she comes back, if I can be an apprentice and learn how to teach? And Carola said yes. And that's when she told me, so for the summer, I want you to go over to Romana's studio and Kathy Grant and get more into the work. She wasn't this competitive person as the rumors had it, oh, there was this war between Carola and Romana. I didn't really see it exactly, but Carola from her end, she saw.
She respected both Ramona and Kathy.
Correct. And she saw something in me. I would be a good Pilates teacher eventually, and she wanted me to get my body into the work with these other people as well. I mean, she was a realist. They were younger than her. So she also unconsciously was thinking about the lineage of the work. She just had an intuition about me since the work came so easily to me in the beginning because of my varied upbringing of dance and growing up on the beach. And I had a cross training kind of upbringing. She probably knew more what I was going to do with the rest of my life than me. One of the things that Carola had said to me that would always stick with me, Carola was sitting at her desk one day, and she kind of brought me over there to talk to her. She was sitting down, of course, and I was standing up. And she said to me, she said, Roberta, you're going to be more famous at this work than me. And I said, what? Carola, no one could be as well known internationally as you are. Why are you saying that? I mean, that's not even, wasn't even like in my mind or anything. She says, Roberta, you have good hands and good eyes. And that is going to be in your favor about you're going to become a really, really good Pilates teacher.
And today's show is about the magic and the power of the hands. Did you learn how to use your hands first by how Carola put her hands on you?
Well, first, I think I came with already a hand knowledge. I grew up in a family where using your hands for everyday activities is really important. So I learned cooking and gardening and sewing, hanging wallpaper.
Expressing yourself.
Yeah, we were a very hand kind of person. And when I was in high school, my dad had a scoliosis experiment operation when he was 12 years old. Okay, so he was born in 1927, and he had really bad scoliosis, and he was an experiment for the Harrington rod. My dad's family was so poor, they couldn't afford surgeries, but the doctors were so hungry to get patients to experiment on for the future. And this hospital, which is now Hospital for Special Surgery, then the hospital was called Hospital for the Ruptured and Crippled.
Oh, my goodness.
And I remember my dad was very upset when they changed the name to Hospital for Special Surgery because he said, we were proud being ruptured and crippled, and we were out, we were fighting, and we were, doing our thing. And because he was in a body cast for a year after that surgery. It was very, very new then. And he had to go every.
Was he in pain?
I don't think so. I don't think he never really talked about pain. It's just that he really liked playing, Johnny on the pony. And so, and he was the youngest of 5 children. So maybe he was just a little bit weaker than his older brothers, but he had to go to the now Hospital for Special Surgery every year. I mean, through the 80s, they kept up with him every year to see how he was doing, to see how the Harrington rod was doing, because he was an experiment for them. He got written up in all kinds of newspapers, things like that as being the experimenter. So in high school, remember the old-fashioned hydrocolate?
Yes.
Things that are packed in sand and you have to boil them in water. So so when my dad was in pain or uncomfortable, we used to have to heat up this hydroculator and layer him with towels, put the hydroculator on. And as the hydroculator started cooling, we would remove one towel to keep the heat lasting a long time. And through him, He taught me how to massage him. He was like, okay, Roberta. And I would just use my hands on his back, and he would say, okay, go a little bit to the right, go a little bit down. Don't be afraid to go deeper here. And so I just learned naturally to massage him, as well as all the other household ironing. We didn't have a dryer, we didn't have a dishwasher. So there was a lot of drying dishes and ironing clothes and, hanging them up on the clothesline. So I learned a lot about my hands through that.
When you started working with Corolla and she would assist you in some exercise she was teaching you, it was natural for you to feel someone's hands on you and facilitating whatever exercise. So I go back to my original question. The way she spotted you, did you take that in and that become part of your own technique when you work with clients?
She would put her hands on top of my hands on the client. Okay. She'd put her hands on the client, let's say their foot. She would put her hand on the foot and I would watch what she did. Then she'd say, okay, you do it. So I'd put my hand on the person's foot the way I thought that she did. She would put her hand on top of my hand to make sure that I was holding it or moving the ankle or moving the knee or doing something like that. And it became very natural. I'm a great student. I mean, yes, it was very natural to me. Later on, I became a reflexologist because of another one of my mentors, because of Marika Molnar. I was working for her with New York City Ballet. And
What is reflexology?
oh, reflexology is like playing with the feet.
Oh, it's all about the feet.
All about the feet. Well, it's about the feet, it's about the hands, and it's about the ear.
Oh,
The idea being is that out of our spine, all the nerves leave, between the discs, and they go to your whole body. They go to the muscles, they go to the organs. When they get to their endpoints, being the feet, the hands, and the ears, well, then, the other nerves have to turn around and come back. You have efferent nerves and afferent nerves. So you have ones going away from the body and the ones going back into the body. So it's at this endpoint junction where things can get blocked, kind of like acupuncture. Acupuncture is trying to unblock anything that's in the path of that meridian. So it's the same thing as reflexology. You're trying to, whether they're crystals or tight muscles, whatever it is, you're trying to unblock so that circulation can flow. The same idea about Pilates. It's about circulation. I remember this great story. I went to a IADAMS conference. That's the International Association for Dance Medicine and Science. And the most notable foot doctor in New York for dancers was Dr. William Hamilton. And he was giving a talk about the mechanics of the foot and whatnot. Now, Dr. Hamilton already knew me because I had already been working at the ballet. And so he did know me visually. So after this session was over, Dr. Hamilton was walking, people asking him questions. So I said to him, Dr. Hamilton, I said, what do you think about reflexology? Dr. Hamilton's a really tall guy and powerful man. And he looks at me, he crosses his hands on his chest. He looks down at me and he says,
uh-oh.
I think reflexology is a bunch of hogwash.
Wow.
He said, but I love reflexology. He said, I don't believe that your big toe is related to the brain or this part of your foot is related to your kidneys. He goes, I don't believe in that. He says, but what it does is it promotes circulation. And anything that promotes circulation will help to go heal whatever is ailing you inside your body. So it was just like a revelation for me in that sense, because after that, whenever I would do reflexology and, you hit a sore spot on someone's foot, they go, what is that? What is that? And I didn't want to tell them it's your kidneys, and then they'd be running to their nephrologist and say, "Oh my God, my reflexology told me that my kidneys are not working." So I would say to them from all the different body things that I studied, I would say, well, in reflexology, it stands for this. In polarity, it stands for that. In acupuncture, that point is that. So I say to them, who cares? How does it feel? It's promoting circulation and it's going somewhere in your body and doing something.
Let me ask you this. It's Joe's idea of doing footwork on the reformer is in keeping with everything you're saying. He understood also the feet start everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Pilates is the only, in my observation, is the only fitness modality that actually concerns itself with the feet. Many of the exercises that you do, you're wearing your sneakers. And right away, once you're wearing sneakers, you're not, having your natural foot touch the ground. I mean, the greatest exercise for your feet and your legs is just walking barefoot on the beach.
Yes.
So I love the Pilates because it did just have this passion about the feet. So the Pilates, how you align your foot, where you put your ankle, where's your little toe, where's your big toe. I am really into because I find where you place the feet, as I learned also from Corolla. For example, if someone came in, usually Dr. Hamilton would recommend most of his mostly dancers who were about to have either foot surgery or knee surgery, hip surgery. And he brought them to Corolla first because he wasn't a cut happy doctor. So he would send them to Corolla first, and Corolla would, work with them. So the idea was that, well, if something's really messed up with your ankle, well, what happens if we realign the knee and the hip, and maybe that whole line will get aligned. Maybe you won't need the surgery. If you were a candidate for knee surgery, Corolla would then, okay, line up the ankle, line up the hip, and maybe if you got all those muscles around the knee working, maybe you would not need surgery. And even if you did need surgery,
You'd heal better.
well, even if Corolla, working with Dr. Hamilton, even if she did her Pilates thing, and let's say it didn't work, then that person went for that surgery. But then they came back to Corolla to continue the rehabilitation for that. Because one thing we forget, muscles have memory. And a lot of physical therapists are doing this now. If you're a candidate for knee surgery or hip surgery, they give you the physical therapy before the surgery.
Yes.
They have found that after that,
Prehab.
right, and then the post rehab kicks in that much faster because even though your muscle is in atrophy because you just had it cut from surgery, but you have this memory of that muscle working. So you actually progress faster in your post surgery because your muscles have the memory that you did these exercises before the surgery.
Let me ask you, did Corolla learn her understanding of the feet through Joe?
Um, I can't say that for sure, but I would assume so. But Corolla was also a licensed massage therapist.
After she attained all this Pilates and Contrology knowledge, she layered on just like you.
According to what I've heard it, she was with Joe Pilates for about 10 years. Okay. So whether she got her massage license during that 10-year thing, because she couldn't perform anymore roller skating on her hands and feet. And, it just added to her thing. But also, I think she did it because that was a great way to learn about the body and how to touch the body and how to massage the body as well. I'm sure Carol also had a natural gift with her hand that was further developed by her going to massage school. So after reflexology school, I went to massage school. Okay. I did, I went on to that. Oh,
The motivation was after you learned a lot about the feet, you wanted to then explore the full body.
well, yes, it was really because of the AIDS crisis. I had a lot of friends, as we all did,
In New York City, mostly in New York City.
in New York City who were dying of AIDS or living with AIDS or all this kind of stuff. And Louise Hay, who wrote a book, Healing Your Life or something.
Heal your body, heal your life, maybe?
Yeah, I have it. I forget. But that's a required book in nursing schools as well.
Oh.
Because nurses used to touch
Hmm.
much more until they invented antibiotics in the 1940s. Then nurses were doing,
Charting.
charting, but they all studied this touch. And in her book, she talks about how reflexology is very powerful for people with AIDS or HIV positive. We didn't have that word in the early 80s because supposedly, here we go again, the pituitary gland is in the middle of your big toe. So by stimulating that reflex point for the pituitary, which is also a healing hormone, she was a really, really big believer in that. And the reason I went to massage school because I couldn't work in a hospital. I couldn't work in places where it was required to be.
Licensed?
In reflexology, you're legally only allowed to touch the person up to their knee. You can't go further. And most hospitals, even though it was a volunteer thing, they wouldn't even let you come in and volunteer if you didn't have a license. So I went to massage school actually to get my license so I can practice reflexology for the AIDS community
Oh.
in hospitals.
Oh.
Of course, it blended, of course, with the plot and everything else. But the political thing that was going on at the time was AIDS. And what can I do to help my friends? I taught reflexology in an AIDS center, a volunteer AIDS center, funded by David Geffen. And it was the most rewarding experience. I've been to the hospital many times with these patients too. And I basically was teaching people how to do reflexology on themselves and for their friends. That you don't have to have a degree in reflexology.
Have you ever offered that?
Yeah, I did.
No. Have you ever offered that to Pilates teachers?
No,
Well, I like that idea a lot.
but if we go into this whole touching thing going around, I think because I have this natural touch and training to touch, I think from everything I've seen with new teachers, it would really be advantageous if all Pilates programs has a massage therapist first and then maybe a physical therapist and to teach, 3 or 4 classes to teach these Pilates people what it's like to touch a real person.
What's a common issue that you've observed with Pilates teachers when they're working with their clients that you think, oh, this person has no clue where to put their hands?
Yeah, a lot of times, yeah, they'll put pressure on the bone instead of the muscles attaching to the bone. They'll put too much pressure, especially let's say you're doing child pose or knee chest position. And teachers like to put their hands on top of the person to do it. They'll actually put their hands on the bones instead of separating the glutes from the sciatic nerve and separating that area so the nerve can breathe. They just don't know. Their intention is good, but either the client will say, oh, that hurts, don't do it, or most of the clients don't say anything. I observed this when we did have teacher training in my studio in like 2006 or 2008. Because I am a naturally touchy person, I didn't realize how much I used touch in my teaching. So when the apprentices started practicing on their own, they were all touchy, 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 touchy. And I said, then I had to also, spend a lot of time training their hands where to touch that particular muscle. And because they were using the touch instead of verbal cueing. So I think that as a beginning student, the verbal cueing is the most important. No touching.
What are your thoughts about that?
I think you should learn how to teach with verbal cueing and then add the touch to that. because you don't want to separate. You don't want to have touching being the only way that you're going to get a client doing it. So the touching is added on to the verbal cueing. And in an ideal school, it would be great if it was part of the requirement that they do that anatomy in clay, they do anatomy trains, or you said, like, I have a friend and we were going to prepare it until something happened with my studio. But I have a really good massage friend who's very versed and work with dancers. And for me, it's like whatever's good for the dancer is good for everybody else.
Definitely.
Because I think we are the hardest working athletes in terms of being able to walk through life with grace. And we work hard in our bodies to have that freedom and growing old gracefully. So I think it would be really good to have a massage therapist friend of yours. Teach these people. Let's trace the soleus muscle. Let's trace the 4 different quad muscles. Let's learn where the spinal muscles.
But then you would use, in terms of tracing, let's say, the soleus muscle, would you use, let's say, knee stretch series? Or would you use a specific exercise in the system to then talk about that? Because I think that would resonate with Pilates teachers, no matter if they're beginner or experienced. Because when you can visually see the musculature, whichever muscle group you're talking about, but then layer on the actual exercise, and then you can break it apart so people can understand what might not be functioning correctly. Is that a good idea?
I think that's a fabulous idea.
I'll be your first student. I love it.
You know, I would include that as part of first feel the muscle, touch the muscle. Oh, and one more book I need to recommend. And to get the Capit and Capit anatomy coloring book. That is my favorite coloring book from all the coloring books that are out there because it's the most cartoonish in kind of a way. And you get to use all these.
The name is
The Anatomy Coloring Book.
just that. Okay.
And it's by these 2 authors, I think Capit and Capit. You can't miss it. I mean, I think Grey's Anatomy has a coloring. All kinds of people have coloring books. But I have seen them all, and I've already done the coloring book twice. And I still see, when I'm massaging with someone's body or doing Pilates, I still see the muscles as, well, this muscle is orange, and this is pink, and this is green. Like I have a visual of what that muscle looks like.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And what I'm trying to trace on them so that they can feel, that particular, muscle as.
That's an easy way to remember visually.
It is. I mean, it's great looking at all the anatomy charts too and getting them. But when you are physically coloring it, it's like anatomy in clay. When you are physically doing something with it, it just might register more into your body. But now we're talking about registering it into your hands. So you can do the anatomy clay, you can do the anatomy trains, you can do the coloring book. Now we got to take that into a practical usage.
How would you prepare a teacher who perhaps is more used to verbal cueing, not very comfortable using his or her hands? How would you prepare that teacher? Maybe similar to how Carola put her hands on you?
Well,
because it's intimidating. I think there are teachers that are maybe a little intimidated at touching appropriately their students, and especially if there's like a dynamic there that doesn't belong there.
Well, those are 2 separate issues, whether the client is uncomfortable being touched or whether the teacher feels uncomfortable touching. And if the teacher feels uncomfortable touching, that's fine. I mean, I wouldn't invade on that. They can surpass themselves with verbal cueing. We're also talking about touch, so we need to talk about pressure. So if a teacher say, gee, I would really like to know how to touch, but I'm kind of insecure about it and I don't really know what to do, I would start by teaching them, like Carola did, either putting my hands on their hands, but I would just have them touch the area of the muscle with no pressure or minimal pressure. lighter is sometimes better than deeper. If you, for example, if you massage too deep, how does the muscle react to a deep massage? Well, you might feel an instant relief. Oh my God, that feels so good. It's so deep and so strong. But now your muscle is really kind of stretched out. And then you go back to your regular activities, and then that muscle, because it was so stretched, can rebound and contract again. Could be even more. So even with massage, the idea is you slowly get deep over time.
You coax the muscle. You coax the muscle. Yes. Let me ask you, have you ever worked with a client and they got emotional or something in their lesson they became emotional because you were facilitating an exercise with your hands? And if so, how did you deal with it? Hey everyone, I wanted to let you know that DarienGold.com has been beautifully redesigned. Besides a new brand identity, the site is simple to navigate. With only 5 menu items, it's easy to glean information about classes and links to the Pilates Mastery app, the ATP podcast, and even to my voiceover website. Plus, I'm offering a special individualized mentoring program. And lastly, Tracing My Path, a digital coffee table book. The Pilates Mastery app has new additions. You can listen to my current podcast season right inside the app. The video player is replaced to help decrease buffering. A replay option is available so you can work on a routine continuously. And our in-app purchase options are coming soon, which include audio-only, single exercises, my wall repertoire, and a meditation piece to help you relax after your workouts. Well, that's the latest news. And now, back to the interview.
So there's two scenarios. I remember once in a reflexology session, the woman I was working for, she fell asleep pretty much within 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the session. And I continued working on her, even though I knew she was sleeping. And her whole body started breaking out in a sweat. She was sweating everywhere. Her hands, her face. And I'm doing.
And she's asleep?
And she's asleep. I'm doing her feet. And she's just like spritzing this water. All this water all over the place. And when it was all over, she was still sleeping, and we let her sleep till she woke up naturally. And then she woke up and she was like, wow, I feel so great. And she realized that she was catching sweat. She was, baked in all this water. And then she revealed to me that she's an alcoholic.
Wow.
So what I was doing in the reflexology, by promoting this circulation through her body, she was detoxing all these toxins from alcohol. And that was like the biggest reaction I had ever gotten from, and like I said, I didn't know that she was an alcoholic before that. People just share with you what they share with you. But because of her reaction afterwards and how great she felt, she shared that personal information with me. There are some clients who don't touch me, so don't. I mean, don't. Don't bother. But you always ask. You always ask permission.
Ask. I feel like it should be, especially this day and age, I think it should be mandatory that there is some component in a certification program that you're taught about the hands. Not the nuances of the magic of what comes through your hands when you're working with a student, but how to. I think that at this point, if we are going to touch our students, and there are many teachers who aren't intuitive enough to know and not secure enough to lay their hands on someone confidently, there should be something in the training.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I mentioned having a massage therapist come in and trace the muscles and, for them to work that way. Another thing about teaching them is if I see a teacher or an apprentice from the program touching them not as correctly as they could, I will put them on the ground, let's say in that child pose, and I will do to them what I saw them doing incorrectly to the client. And then this is the proper way. Feel the bone here. So you're going to pull the glutes away from the bone. You're not going to directly on the bone. And that's how you learn. I mean, of course, there's that Chinese philosophy of something like once you've touched 1,000 bodies, everything you do after that is just healing. It just comes out. So they need to.
Well, I wonder about Romana. Romana had amazing hands, and that just might have been the gift in her. I don't think that she would have necessarily learned that from Joe.
Well, I don't know, because Joe seemed to be, from the videos that I've seen, he seemed to be a pretty touchy person.
Yeah, but he's sort of rough.
Yeah, yeah.
That one guy throwing him on the reformer. Oh, yeah. It's hilarious.
It could also be the high speed of the film at that time. But yes, I mean, I think touch is very important if you get permission, and then you have to know how to touch. And always communicate with your client. How does this feel? Is it too deep? Is it not deep enough? And they might say, well, I don't know. Whatever you do, you do. It's not hurting me, so okay. But I have just found touch so valuable for clients. It makes them so aware of themselves and so aware of the muscle that you want them to activate.
Remember when you were saying that Carola would tap a muscle when you were observing her, that she would tap a muscle group that wasn't firing during, let's say, running or footwork?
Well, I don't know about tapping. She really would put her hands on their hands and work with like for running, work with the ankle. Your hands were running while the teacher's hands were running while the client's feet were running, just to make sure they went up and down, especially for the dancer, that they were going up and down.
Not rolling out of the ankles.
Right, and using many more muscles in your foot than just doing the exercise, from the outside in.
Carola was with Joe about 10 years. Was he freaked out or upset when she started to teach out of her apartment?
No, just the opposite. He supported her in opening up her own place. In fact, he or his brother built her reformers for her. And they actually were a little bit smaller than your average reformer that we know of today, because they needed to fit in her living room in her apartment.
Is that how the 80-inch came about?
Is that the smaller one?
Yes, yes.
Could be, or even smaller. I know one person that's still.
Oh, the junior reformer.
Probably bigger than the junior reformer. I mean, because we had big guys on there as well. It was just, whatever, a little bit smaller. But no, he encouraged, unlike other people, like I think he had issues with Bob Seed when Bob Seed opened up his studio. But
that was in the same building, wasn't it?
I remember when I went to Bob Seed, maybe he was in the beginning, but no, he was just a couple of blocks away. They were all in the same neighborhood. I mean, Bob Seed might have been on 56th Street. Carola was on 58th Street. Joe was on 8th Avenue and 50th.
Is that Hell's Kitchen?
Yes.
I remember Hell's Kitchen.
And, 8th Avenue used to be called Prostitute Row.
Oh.
And the further west you went, the worse it was. Joe encouraged her to work out. And because, Carola was with him for so many years with her own rehabilitation stuff, he would send people to Carola that he felt, with her expertise and her hands and her love for the whatever, he would send some of the more crippled people to Carola.
What floor was she on?
Ooh, you had to take the elevator. So you had to take the elevator. I mean, she was like, I don't know. I don't remember. 10th floor.
But you couldn't walk. It wasn't a storefront.
Oh, absolutely not. It was her apartment. She turned her living room and her dining room into a home studio.
Yeah, I did that very soon after I started working with Ramona. I had a house, and that's what you did. You didn't even think about it.
Right. And she made a good enough living. Like I said, she could, take care of herself.
How many days a week did you go and study with her?
I went anywhere when in the beginning for the first few months, I went maybe 2 to 3 times a week.
How was your body feeling?
It was great because I was transitioning from dance at that point. I think we talked about in the last video. It was a whole auspicious thing how Pilates came to me. I didn't seek out Pilates. I had snapped my back out in a ballet class at 8 o'clock in the morning. And Louise Roberts, who was head of Clark Center, I hobbled over to the office because there was no heat in the building. In the space I'm at, in the space where I had my studio, was my ballet class, like I said, at 8 in the morning.
I know. Didn't we take class together? I think we did.
We could have, excuse me, but that was the first time when my back had snapped and I walked like an elephant to Louise Roberts' office. That was the first time I heard about Pilates. She just said to me right away, she said, "You need to see Corolla." And I didn't. I went home, I took a bath in Epsom salt, and my back was fine. So it took a few other auspicious things for me to get to her. The first time I met her, within 2 seconds, I knew once I met her, and then I had to sit down on her bench and observe what's going on. I knew I was going to do this for the rest of my life because I was at that transition point where I knew I was a good dancer, but obviously not a good enough dancer to have a paid dancing job, so dance by day, waitress at night. And I knew that by the time I was 40, I was not going to be wanting to continue waiting on tables. So Pilates came to me and it gave me a career. And she was really great to work with.
But you got stronger, a different kind of strength than you when you were at your strongest point as a dancer. Didn't you find that you were feeling another kind of deeper strength after working with Corolla for a while?
Well, what I really got, well, yes, I got the deeper strength, but I got the alignment. So while I was basically a modern jazz dancer who studied, and tap and all the, everything else, and I always studied ballet. To me, ballet was
the foundation.
But I had no aspiration to become a ballet dancer. I was happy with my modern jazz dancing. But like I said, I always took the ballet for the discipline. When I started doing Pilates, I would go into the ballet class and I started doing triple pirouettes.
I know.
When I would thank God if I got a double.
I know.
And it was all because things were aligned, muscles were awakened, and I was able to, my body was able to perform what I saw. But by then I already decided, of course, I wasn't going to dance, but it was really fun to go back to dance classes and to be better at them when I decided I need to find a career. And that's, of course, when I always, my dream was always just to work with dancers. Of course, I worked with everybody through the years, but my initial thing was, God, if I did this when I was 17 years old, I might have had a different dance career. So I was
we all say that.
dedicated to those young dancers to keep them
healthy,
dancing and aligned.
100%.
But some of the fun things about Corolla, I learned we would always have, if nobody was in the studio and I was there with mostly Adelio Ferraro, we would have tea and, some kind of pastry because Greenberg's was right downstairs and had these pastries. Well, two things I learned, because I am a tea drinker, so that was great. She also taught me not to wash out your teapots with soap.
Oh.
Because she says you never can really get the soap out. You just wash it with hot water or soak it in hot water and that's it. So what if it is stained a little bit with tea on the inside? I kind of still do that. If I'm, making a pot of tea and putting it in a big pot, I don't wash it out. I don't wash it out with soap. And with the cakes and the tea, Adelio, who was a dancer with the Metropolitan Opera Ballet, every day, and every day I worked for her basically, at least when I worked for like 4 to 5 days a week. Adelio said to me one day, he whispers in my ear and he says, if you keep eating those pastries every day, he said, you're going to start getting fat. He said, and the more you eat them, the more she's going to give you more. He said, so my advice to you, Roberta, is learn to say no thank you. And that's what I would do. And then Corolla got the hint. It's like she was not going to get me fat or eating these things. Like, you don't want to say no to Corolla. Oh, thank you for this fancy thing, which you just ate because you just
1,000 calories.
And because of him, I started saying no, thank you.
She was a giving person.
Yes, she was very giving. She can also find out what your weaknesses were emotionally.
Oh,
I've seen many a client,
okay.
maybe under five, I should say, where she was able to get into some deep emotional side and they would be hysterical. They would start hysterical crying during a session.
But did she do it intentionally?
I think in some cases, yes. But on the other hand, it was a good therapeutic thing because she was also testing your strength of self. So a few times I would have to go into the dressing room in the back and calm down the client, and be huggy to the client, like it's okay, sometimes she gets that, just sort of make the client feel better about it. But they would still come back to her.
She spoke the truth.
She spoke the truth, and well, one, she didn't tell the truth.
Oh,
And this you'll see. So one day, my mother came to visit to see what I was doing. And when you walk into Carla's studio, she has this little bench that new people and guests can sit on to watch what's going on. And Corolla used to always tell the story in the studio that she was a Holocaust survivor. And she was actually in a determined camp in France.
internment.
Internment camp, right, in France. But she would tell people that she was in a concentration camp. And one day my mother came to visit, and my mother is a Holocaust survivor, does have her tattoo on her arm. And when she met my mother, she was very gracious to my mother and talking with her and everything like that. For many reasons, my mother doesn't have that traditional accent. And when she left, like the next day, Corolla said to me in a matter of being honest, she says, Roberta, it was a real pleasure meeting your mother. She's such a sweetheart, blah, 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 blah. She says, but I have to tell you this. She says, because I met your mother, I used to always tell people that I was a Holocaust survivor. And she said, because I met your mother, she says, I cannot say that anymore. That she has to say the truth about her being in an internment camp. She couldn't say that anymore because she had met my mother.
I wonder why she felt the need to say that.
I don't know. Just because maybe an internment camp doesn't sound as serious as a concentration camp. Because
Probably not.
right, because
They're not being gassed and murdered and thrown into holes.
right. And also remember Joe was in an internment camp,
Right. Isle of Man.
the Isle of Man in Nikalo. So that was also an internment camp where they were fed, where they had theater, where they had exercise. They were just in an internment camp. No torture.
But that was big of her to share that with you.
Yeah, it was. It was. I didn't hold it against her for her in any way because I had never really heard that about her. Or maybe I did hear her say, but I never discussed that with her. It was like in my first 6 months of working for Corolla. So I was still the dutiful apprentice. Yes, ma'am. Yes, okay, whatever you say. Okay.
Did Corolla see the tattoo on your mom's arm?
Yeah, probably.
And that probably brought her to reality because she didn't have that.
Yeah. Oh, I did. I said to Corolla one day, I said, Corolla, why don't you write a biography? You have so much in your life. She said, I would, but
Uh-oh.
I've told so many stories. I'm not sure what's not anymore. So, so I'm sort of hesitant about that. I got to go through, you know, and I kind of laughed. And I don't think any of her stories were malicious in any way whatsoever. She might have embellished on certain stories or whatever her life was, however she told it.
Her native language was German or French?
German.
German. So she and Joe spoke German in his studio.
I would assume so, or maybe not. I find with immigrants that I've known through the years from a variety of places, they want to speak English. Joe, remember, was also a Freemason. And
Oh, do people know that?
I think they should. I mean, I would think they do if I know it. But what people don't know was that next to Hitler hating the Jews, he hated the Freemasons. That's why when Joe finally got to America for good, was able to stay here for good, he never went back to Germany. He didn't want to go back to, he just didn't want to go back. I mean, his town is not a very prosperous town or things that I've heard about the town. No, he didn't want to go back there. So I would like people to investigate more, him being a Freemason. And they were equally as hated as much as, the gypsies and the gays and the handicapped. So I would think also that even though he had an accent,
A thick accent, so we were told.
as an older person, I mean, coming to America, 47 years old, right? Difficult. So I would think that he probably spoke a German English with her. Maybe German words were thrown in. She understood maybe a little bit, maybe that. But I would think that he would wanted to. And maybe it was easy for him talking to a German person who spoke English. Corolla must have spoke French too, because she went there as a performing artist. So when the war broke out, same thing that happened to Joe, who happened to be in England at that time. So they put you in an internment camp. And actually, when you look at it, it's kind of for their safety. Everybody hated Germany and they remained in England. Who knows? They might have been lynched. So as bad as it was to be in an internment camp, it was probably also for their protection against the rest of the population. Like it was very sad what they did to the Japanese in America in an internment camp, but they also, on the other hand, maybe were afraid that if they were not protected in that camp, Americans beat every Japanese person they saw.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if how Joe felt if he had opinions about the Jews in general, because he had Jews around him.
That I don't know. I just know that he was not a fan of Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good enough. And I think he knew a lot of Jewish people that came to his studio because New York became the biggest city to where Jewish people after the war came. And even before that, New York was a bustling town, a growing town for all immigrants.
Italians, Irish.
Every ethnic background had their little piece of neighborhood around New York. And basically everybody got along.
Got along, which is stunning compared to what is today.
Correct. But yeah, I'm ever so grateful for my training with Corolla and subsequently, with Kathy and Naja and Ramona, etc. I don't think we understood it at that time.
And nausea doesn't get that much attention. I did have Judith Green on a few seasons ago, who spoke about nausea, but what was different about her?
Well, once again, I met her later in her life. Understand these women, Corolla, Kathy, Ramona, Naja, were definitely eccentric women. There was an eccentricity about her. Naja, she was on the Mike Douglas show quite a lot. She danced with a snake. Okay.
That is a little eccentric.
Yeah. By the time I met Naja, there's lots of things I could say about her, but I never will. She was really into yoga. And we had to Like every studio, Corolla, Kathy, and them, had certain protocol.
Oh, Ramona did for sure.
I don't really remember hers, but
Oh,
from Corolla, you were not allowed to wear jewelry. You were not allowed to wear jewelry. You couldn't wear dangling earrings. You couldn't have a bunch of bobby pins in your hair. You either let it loose or just a simple ponytail.
we couldn't straddle the reformer. You'd get thrown out.
With nausea, thank God, of course, it was a women's only class. You had to wear white leotards with no tights.
Oh,
You were not allowed to wear perfume. You cannot wear any jewelry as well. Yeah, like I said, I would never wear a white leotard if there were men in the class with no tights on. But it was an all women's class, and you kind of got used to it. She wanted you to see your body in its natural way.
did she dress that way?
Yes, yes. And then she had this little room with some showers. So after your class, you went in and you had to take like a 30-second cold shower before you got dressed. And I think Joe did the same thing.
Yes.
So she kept that up.
How long did she work with Joe?
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know. But I think the people who claim that they got their university degree from Joe, I think that Naja was one of those people. Someone I know who also kind of studied with Naja. Everyone's been trying to get to Naja's daughter to go through her papers to see if she can find this diploma because I have it in my memory. That's something Naja told me about herself that Kathy Grant did it, and I think Naja did it too.
Was she a good teacher?
Yes.
What stands out?
Um. Also, very attentive to your body. Knew how to get you to wake up sleepy muscles through her touch. And she also had a lot of pre-Pilates, like, Kathy has her pre-Pilates thing, with the cat and various
And
things.
Eve, and Eve Gentry.
Right. And Nasha took it with where you had like, it was more like physical therapy stuff. You had arm weights and you would hang over and
Oh,
you would,
we learned that with
yeah,
Ramona.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So she had that also, arm weights and little stretchy with the stretchy band, little things to do on your own or, not necessarily in the class. Yeah, sometimes in the class. And at that time, I said she was so into yoga. She had quit eating meat. She was very pure that way. And she was great. I wish all these people, I wish I could have gotten more out of them,
Yes. Yes.
than what I got. But a lot of times, if it wasn't the physical thing of what you were learning, the actual physical way of doing the exercise, there was also a lot of, that mind, body, spirit. There was also a lot of interpersonal things that were going on because we're all coming from a place of issues we have to work on. So in kind of a way, by working with them, sort of help those emotional things indirectly without having to talk about them to a talking therapist. Your body moved to help you release frustration.
Which is why the hands are so instrumental
Yes. So let's get
moving
back
that
to
along. Yeah. The hands just are so vital.
yes, but like and as I said, I think the modern day contemporary hit Pilates classes, things like that, I think they're just more into like an Orange Theory class.
You can't, yes. So that's all outside in. But if you're working inside out, you need those hands.
Correct. And if everyone who's doing these Pilates metamorphosis things, if all those people
Pilates inspired.
Pilates inspired, but if they had all done classical Pilates for a couple of years, they'd be better at all the variations that are coming up from Pilates.
Agreed.
And that SRT thing opened up on 57th Street years ago with that mega reformer. I was getting
Injured.
tons of people who were injured in the process.
Yep.
So then I went over there to take a class there so I could see why these people were getting injured. What are they doing over there? And it wasn't my cup of tea, but the bottom line is what I've always believed, if you do Pilates in the classical sense, it'll prepare for your body for doing anything else that you want.
Yes.
If you know your alignment, if you know how to get those muscles working, you could take anybody's class, Pilates for the butt or this or that, but you will know how to align yourself so that you won't get injured.
Beautiful.
Because sometimes the Pilates teachers are like cheerleaders rather than movement.
Right.
Yeah, movement
That's
facilitators.
Great. Roberta, of course, we could talk for another 2 hours. I do have one last question, if you are open to my asking you. The studio that you had, HAD, 9398 8th Avenue, it was Joe's studio that you brought back to life. You resurrected this sacred space. But there's some rumors floating around that there have been some
changes. Changes.
Okay, good. Change is happening. Thank you. Thank you. Can you share with our listeners what the hell is going on? All Things Pilates is produced, written, edited, and hosted by me, Darien Gold. Mastered audio mix, Fabian Romero. Original music, a.k.a. Johnny. If you're enjoying this show, we would love for you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts so you can let others know what you like or love about All Things Pilates. Also, if you're interested in helping to support this podcast, become a subscriber. It helps with the back-end costs that accrue when producing a show. To learn more about our growing community, check out our show notes. Better to have an enemy who slaps you in the face than a friend who stabs you in the back.